This axe head has been sitting in a bucket of water for 3 days. Just water and a handful of oak bark chips from the woodpile. Pull it out and look at that. The rust that was there, the orange flaky surface eating kind, is gone. In its place is a dark blue-black coating bonded to the metal at the molecular level. That coating is not paint, it's not a sealant. It used to be the rust itself. $3 of powder, 45 minutes, and the rust didn't just stop, it became the protection. I'm not going to tell you this is a new discovery. It isn't. Roman legionnaires were doing a version of this 2,000 years ago. Japanese swordsmiths figured it out independently. West African ironworkers figured it out independently. Blacksmiths across medieval Europe figured it out independently. Every civilization that worked iron and had forests arrived at the same conclusion on their own. That kind of convergence doesn't happen by accident. That's chemistry being obvious to anyone paying close attention. The reason you've never heard of it, the global auto parts industry generates over $400 billion a year. Roughly 90 billion of that comes from rust damage alone. Replacement panels, brake lines, exhaust systems, suspension components that should have lasted decades. A $3 solution that converts rust and seals the surface underneath it is not something that industry has any incentive to put on a billboard. So, let me just show you how it works. You already know this reaction. You've seen it your whole life and just never had a name for it. That dark staining on your cast iron pan when you cook with acidic food. That blue-black color on antique ironwork that somehow survived centuries without crumbling. The ink in a medieval manuscript. Iron gall ink made by reacting iron salts with oak galls that has lasted 800 years on parchment. All of it is the same chemistry. Tannin meets iron. They react. Something stable forms. The compound is called tannin, or, in purified form, tannic acid. It's found in oak bark, chestnuts, tea leaves, grape skins, pomegranate rind. It's the astringent sensation when you drink strong black tea or dry red wine. That slight drying feeling on your tongue. That's tannin binding to proteins. And when tannin meets iron oxide, which is what rust is, the tannin molecules bind to the iron ions and convert them into a new compound called ferric tannate. Blue-black, insoluble in water, bonded directly to the steel surface at the molecular level. It doesn't sit on top of the rust and peel away later. It transforms the rust itself into the protective layer. The disease becomes the cure. That's not a poetic description. That's the chemistry. Formally documented in 1813 by a French chemist named Henri Braconnot. And the Canadian Conservation Institute still publishes it today as a standard procedure for treating corroded iron artifacts. What museums use to protect objects they intend to last centuries is the same compound you're about to mix in a plastic container for $3. Here's the parts list. Food-grade tannic acid powder. Search that exact phrase on Amazon, and it's in the first 3 results. Bulk Supplements is one reliable brand. A 100G bag runs $3 to $5 and treats roughly 40 FT of rusted metal. That's an entire truck frame, a full set of camp tools, and still have powder left over. Phosphoric acid. And this is the upgrade most recipes skip. Research published in Advances in Materials Science and Engineering found the optimal formula is 3% tannic acid combined with 10% phosphoric acid. The phosphoric acid helps the tannin penetrate deeper into the rust layer and converts remaining rust into ferric phosphate, which is equally stable. It's sold as navel jelly at any hardware store for $2 or $3. Distilled water, not tap. Tap water contains chloride ions, and chloride accelerates corrosion. A $1 jug from the grocery store, a foam brush or cotton rag, a wire brush or steel wool for prep. That's it. Total cost $3 to $6. The tannic acid alone still works. The combination works significantly better. Before I walk you through the build, here's how I found out this works. I had a bench full of tools that had gotten away from me. A mattock left out too many winters, trowels with serious surface rust, a draw hoe I'd had since my 20s that I couldn't bring myself to replace. I tried the usual things. Wire brushing, WD-40, navel jelly straight from the tube. They helped temporarily. 6 months later, the orange crept back. I came across the tannic acid chemistry, mixed up a batch, and spent one afternoon going through every rusted tool on that bench, and I wasn't expecting what happened next. It was genuinely satisfying in a way I didn't anticipate. There's something almost meditative about the process. Brushing the solution on, watching the color shift from orange to dark gray to blue-black right in front of you. It's slow enough to be calming. ASMR before I knew what ASMR was. The quiet scrub of the wire brush. The soft color change happening while you watch. The smell of the tannin solution. Earthy and slightly sweet like strong forest tea. Everyone I've talked to who's done this describes the same thing. There's something deeply satisfying about watching something broken become whole again right in your hands. That was almost 12 years ago. The mattock is still in the garden shed. The draw hoe is on the wall. Not one of them has re-rusted to anything worse than a faint surface patina. I touch up once a season in about 20 minutes. 12 years, $3 of powder in one afternoon. Here's how it goes together. Mix 4G of tannic acid powder into 100 ml of warm distilled water. Stir until dissolved. The solution turns the color of strong black tea. Add a teaspoon of navel jelly and stir it in. That's your formula. Take your wire brush or steel wool and knock off any loose flaking rust. You don't need to sand to bare metal. That's actually the wrong approach. The tannin needs existing rust to react with. Remove what's already detached and preventing good contact. Leave the rest. Brush the solution evenly across the surface. Within 10 to 15 minutes, the color shifts orange-brown to dark gray to blue-black. That's the conversion happening in front of you. Ferric tannate forming in real time. Let it dry completely. 2 to 4 hours. Then apply a second coat. The Canadian Conservation Institute specifically calls for multiple thin coats rather than one thick one. Excess ferric tannate can flake. Thin coats fully dried between applications build a denser and more adherent layer. After the second coat cures, finish with whatever suits the application. For camp tools, axes, knives, hatchets, boiled linseed oil, or melted beeswax. For vehicle frames and undercarriages, rubberized undercoating spray. For cast iron cookware, reseasoning in a 350-degree oven is normal. Here's the one thing people get wrong. They expect it to look like paint. It doesn't. It looks like the metal got darker and slightly metallic. Some people see that and think it didn't work. It worked. The blue-black finish is the ferric tannate. That's the protection. One honest note, this significantly reduces corrosion. It doesn't make metal immune under all conditions. In high chloride environments, sea air, heavy road salt, the layer will degrade over time and need reapplication. For most outdoor and camping use, that's a once-a-season touch-up taking 20 minutes using powder from a bag you bought years ago. The commercial rust converter products at your hardware store, $15 to $30 a bottle, list tannic acid as their primary active ingredient. Pull up the safety data sheet on any of them, and there it is. Same chemistry, different label, 10 to 15 times the price. Now here's the part that keeps sitting with me. This knowledge was so universal that independent civilizations on 4 continents arrived at it separately. Roman leather workers discovered it by accident in tanning vats and told the blacksmiths. Japanese swordsmiths developed their own version using fermented persimmon juice. West African iron workers used acacia pods and shea bark before the monsoon season. Iron Age bog bodies have been found in Northern Europe with intact iron blades beside them more than 1,000 years old. Preserved not by any deliberate treatment, but by the naturally high tannin content of the peat water. Somewhere in the last 100 years, as the hardware store aisle filled with branded products, this knowledge stopped being passed down. The old knowledge just quietly sat on a shelf and gathered dust. A 100G bag in 45 minutes, and it's back in your hands. I don't know what brought you here. Maybe it's the axe head that came back from a camping trip orange. Maybe it's the truck frame you've been putting off. Maybe the cast iron pan sitting in the corner of the kitchen since last winter. Maybe you just like knowing how things actually work and ended up here at midnight because of an algorithm you can't explain. Doesn't matter. The rust on whatever you're looking at right now is not a problem waiting for an expensive solution. It's a raw material waiting for the right chemistry. $3, 45 minutes, and the rust goes to work for you. That's it for today, and I hope to see you in the next. Take care. If this chemistry has changed the way you look at the orange decay in your workshop, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the practical wisdom that modern industry has tried to overlook. Let's preserve the tools of the past to build the future. The next discovery is just beneath the surface.